For this video, I'm taking you for one final look at the Orlando Fashion Square before it's closed down and demolished to be redeveloped. Sometimes it's depressing to be a YouTuber. I lived in Orlando for about 15 years. Some of the best years of my life, actually. I went to the University of Central Florida for both my bachelor's and master's degrees, and I spent a lot of time in the city. And one of my favorite hangouts with my friends in college was the Orlando Fashion Square. So the mall I'm walking around today, I spent hundreds, if not thousands, of hours in just hanging out in the food court or, shopping at the GameStop or the Babbage's, all kinds of fun adventures with my various game consoles in the 90s, mostly the Dreamcast and Nintendo 64 and PlayStation 1, and a little later on, even the original Xbox. Seeing the mall in this dilapidated shape is just depressing because I remember it when it was a bustling metropolis and the place was packed. For example, I'm walking around here on a Friday afternoon, and there used to be wall-to-wall people in here. But it's been a long time since I lived in Orlando. I moved out of the Central Florida area about 10 years ago, so it's been a while, and it's just a stark contrast to how this place used to be. But the failure of the Orlando Fashion Square is just another example of why I'm moving out of Florida. I'm just tired of all this regression. I've looked at the plans of what they're going to replace this mall with. It's pathetic. It really is. They're just going to do another open-air shopping center, just like the one across the street from this mall. This mall is failing because there's an overabundance of retail in this area. There's just a lot of commercial real estate. There aren't enough retailers to support all the commercial real estate. So what they're going to do is they're going to knock down this mall because it can't support the retail stores and replace it with retail stores. So I mean, it's just absolutely bonkers. They're going to get rid of the indoor air-conditioned mall and knock down the movie theater, not replacing the movie theater, and then they're going to replace it with an open-air mall that in a state where we get about 75 inches of precipitation every year, and the heat index is in excess of 100 degrees for 4 to 5 months out of the year. So I mean, it's stupid. It's absolutely dumb. This is the dumbest place to build open air malls. I know everybody's doing it, but the vacancy rate is 60% at all the other open air malls on Colonial Blvd. So you're just going to build another dead mall in the place of the old dead mall. So it doesn't make sense. If they were smart, they would just build all residential here and call it a day. This whole hybrid commercial residential stuff, it doesn't work like the malls don't work. So I mean, it's just going to be a couple condos next to empty shopping centers. That's the future of this particular location, and they're going to spend billions building it, and we're still going to have a dead mall at the end of it. The reason why Orlando Fashion Square has failed is it had 4 anchors, 3 of which have gone out of business, and that's what's killing this area. Is Sears was an anchor. That company basically is non-existent. JCPenney's was the other anchor. They're circling the drain right now, just barely still solvent. And then Dillard's was the third one, and they're another one that is in the process of reorganization because they're all losing money. And the thing is, the brick and mortars don't they just don't have the ability to live in this type of economy. Everybody buys things from Amazon and stays at home now. They don't go to the mall for purchases anymore because, I get it. A lot of people are sick of going to malls because they hunt for things they specifically need and they never find them. So it's easier just to do a Google search for what they're trying to buy. That's what's killing the brick and mortars. But when this mall goes away, there are no other enclosed malls around here, and there are also no movie theaters. You're going to have to drive all the way down to Waterford Lakes to see a movie now. If you want to go shopping at a real mall, you got to drive either down to the Florida Mall in the tourist corridor or go all the way up to the Altamont Springs Mall, and that's crazy. Orlando's not going to have a mall soon, and It's just nuts. Now, this particular mall has a long history of being here too. This is a historic mall. It opened in 1973. So this thing has ties to this community. It's not like something that was built in the the recession or the crazy mall boom in the 90s. This place was the Sears that started out here at this retail pad opened in 1963. So there's a lot of history in this community, and it's just pathetic that the residents here don't support malls. I don't see their plan working out. So they're gonna put all this effort into knocking down this mall and building basically an outdoor version of the same thing, and it just seems like another failure. They're not learning from the mistakes they already made here. There's an open air mall directly across the street called Colonial Landing, and the vacancy rate is atrocious. It's just awful. I mean, they have a couple big box stores there, and the rest of the strip is empty. So all the small boutique shops that they're going to be marketing this open air shopping to, nobody is renting the existing spaces already for that exact same concept. So it's dumb. Since a lot of the history of this particular mall happened when I wasn't living here, it would either happen before I was born or after I moved out of Orlando, I'm just going to read the history of this place from the Wikipedia entry. So the first operational store on the site was the 173,000 square foot Sears department store, which opened for business in October 1963. The mall was first announced in 1971 by developer Leonard Farber, who also developed the Pompano Square, which is another mall I grew up with as a kid. Under the original plans, the mall would be attached to the existing Sears store, with Burdines as the second anchor. Burdines opened along with the rest of the mall on July 30th, 1973. A third anchor, Robinsons of Florida, opened on the north side of the mall on October 29th, 1973. Robinsons of Florida was the newly created Florida division of California-based J.W. Robinsons. The Orlando location was their second Florida location, opening 2 months after their first store at Tyrone Square Mall in St. Petersburg. A freestanding movie theater was built on an outparcel in 1975, which existed until 1989. In 1988, Robinsons Florida stores were sold to Maison Blanche. Maison Blanche then built a new store just northeast of the original store 2 years later. The previous store would become more in-line mall space, connecting to the new store with the rest of the mall. Maison Blanche became Gaffer's in 1992, which was then sold to Dillard's in 1998. JCPenney built a new store at the mall to replace a store at Winter Park Mall in 1993. An interior renovation completed in 2002. In 2004, a new movie theater owned by Premier Cinemas opened in the mall. Burdines became Macy's in 2005. In 2013, Pritt sold the mall to UP Development Incorporated for $35 million. The new owner has plans to redevelop the mall. 1 year later, a new bowling alley was added and the movie theater was rebuilt. In 2014, Dillard's converted its store into a Dillard's Clearance Center and closed its second floor. The mall lost several other stores during this year, such as Bath & Body Works, Victoria's Secret, and The Limited. In 2015, Sears Holdings spun off 235 of its properties, including the Sears at Orlando Fashion Square, into Seritage Growth Properties. On August 9, 2016, Sears announced their intentions to close their store at this mall. The Sears store was demolished in April 2017. The floor and decor store was built to replace the Sears. Out parcels on the Seritage site include the Longhorn Steakhouse, Mission Barbecue, and the Olive Garden. On June 4, 2020, JCPenney announced that it would be closing as part of a plan to close another 154 stores nationwide. The store at the Orlando Fashion Square closed on October 18, 2020. Stores that have closed at the mall in 2022 to 2023 include Claire's, Finish Line, Journeys, and T-Mobile. So yeah, just reading that history, the retail apocalypse has struck again and has basically mortally wounded the Orlando Fashion Square. As I walk around this mall, I can't help but feel like deja vu, because I just filmed a video like this like a year ago at the Crystal River Mall, and it was the same kind of circumstances. They're knocking down that mall and movie theater to build another one of these outdoor shopping centers with some residential properties, and if that's the only business model that works for you, then maybe you should find a new line of work, because we don't need all these dead strip shopping centers. We really don't. Florida is already being overdeveloped to oblivion, and all it is just urban sprawl and empty storefronts. I mean, come on already. Haven't you noticed that nobody is renting the existing properties? There was a recent article on West Channel 2 that was talking about how Orlando's vacancy rate is already the highest in the country. So what are they going to do? They're gonna build more retail to make that vacancy rate even higher. It's bonkers, and that's exactly why I'm moving out of the state. I'm just tired of it. They're gonna block traffic and destroy Colonial yet again to build an empty mall, and it's just, oh my God, these people are just brain dead. Well, that's pretty much everything I have to say about the Orlando Fashion Square. I'm just going to play a little music now as I finish walking around showing you what the place looks like before they knock it down. Thanks for joining me on one last walk around the Orlando Fashion Square. This place really does hold a lot of great memories for me, and I'm truly going to miss it. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.